All right, your next speaker is Miranda Sawyer. Miranda has over 15 years in UX design, including 7 years specializing in healthcare. She's the lead UX architect at BAMF Health, a startup pioneering AI-driven precision medicine. She spends her days planning experiences for their clinic, radiopharmacy, and AI team. Miranda is a certified usability analyst from Human Factors International and a Scrum Master. Please welcome your next speaker, Miranda Sawyer.
Hi, thank you for that intro. I also just want to give a big thank you because Dr. Hood and Mohit did a great job setting me up there. I feel like their presentations were just a great segue to this, especially since we have limited time. So most of the presentations I have seen so far focus on how to use AI to improve speed and output quality. But today I'm going to shift that conversation and I'll be talking about designing for AI. I'm sure all of you will have that opportunity at some point or have had it already, and doing something new can be a little nerve-wracking. So hopefully I'll be giving you some good advice today. While we'll touch on some medical terminology, I'll do my best to make it accessible and easy to follow. My background is rooted in research, strategy, information design, and as mentioned, I have 7 years of experience in healthcare. I made this shift after personal experiences with infertility and chronic migraines. I discovered a device that helped me reduce the severity of my migraines greatly and inspired me to apply my skills where they could truly make a difference in healthcare. BAMF Health stands for Bold Advanced Medical Future. We specialize in imaging, radiopharmacy, therapy, and clinical trials. We're one of the first in the world to be vertically integrated. What that means is that we develop the radioactive drug, we perform the imaging, we administer that treatment in our clinic, and provide expert clinical evaluation under one roof, which is very unique right now. We began by treating prostate cancer, which is a relatively slow growing and well suited as a starting point. Our first patient was treated in August 2022. And since then, we've expanded our offerings to include Alzheimer's therapy, and we're actively running clinical trials for breast cancer, brain, liver, and pancreatic cancers, neuroendocrine tumors, and even endometriosis imaging. Looking ahead, we're preparing to open our next location in Detroit, Michigan, continuing our mission to make precision medicine more accessible. I just want to say a quick thank you to my team. We were small but mighty. Our process was very short. Last year, about January, we started with a prototype created by the developers. And by March 1st, we had finalized the design plans and handed them off to development. And then all in all, it was completed by May. So that was very short time frame, and we had a lot to learn then. I'm going to give you a little bit of history of imaging and AI as well. In 1895, there was the discovery of X-rays, and by 1952, ultrasounds were used for clinical purposes. In 2000, we have the first PET-CT hybrid imaging, which is in a very advanced imaging, and we actually have one of those scanners here. In 2018, the FDA approved AI algorithms for medical imaging. That was only 7 years ago, which feels like a really short time for me. AI itself was introduced in 1956, and by the 1970s, its potential in clinic decision-making was already being explored. And today, that potential is rapidly becoming a reality. There's lots of reports out there, but I would say about 86% of health systems are now using AI in some part of their operation. This obviously varies quite a bit right now. Radiology in particular stands to benefit greatly from AI, from enhancing image acquisition, analysis, and reporting workflows. Digital health investments in the US peaked at over 29 billion in 2021 and nearly double that in 2020. While funding has cooled slightly, early stage investment remains strong. Healthcare AI startups are among the fastest growing, especially in radiology, diagnostics, and drug discovery. As a result, the global AI and healthcare market is projected to grow from 11 billion in 2021 to over 100 billion by 2030. And if you didn't know, yes, the FDA has to approve your AI algorithms, which was news to me. Our goal for this project was to help the physician plan and help the patient understand the next steps. While you're in the middle of a diagnosis like cancer, it can be very hard to focus on what needs to happen next. And our goal was to make that helpful for the patient as well. We started with interviews. We interviewed a medical salesperson, which might be a bit of a surprise, but they're actually a very valuable resource. They not only understand clinical terminology, but they're skilled at translating those complex medical concepts for us non-experts. Their advice was instrumental in how we shaped this tool. As much as possible, you'll see that we provided answers and context. We showed under the hood. We also optimized the displays for a larger iPad and for a large screen monitor to showcase the visuals and workflows during this. For the physician, their primary goal was to monitor the disease progression, identify any new lesions or signs of metastasis, and looking beyond that primary cancer site. And then again, their main goal was communicating with the patient. The more challenging subject was the radiologist. One of the biggest challenges with AI in radiology is the lack of transparency in its decision-making process. Many radiologists have become disillusioned, having experienced tools that failed to deliver meaningful support, or worse, offered no indication if they even ran successfully. This has led to a sense of skepticism, where the introduction of yet another AI tool often earns an eye roll. Through this project, I gained a deeper understanding for the complexity of medical imaging. I hadn't realized how much a patient's medical experience had, like prior surgeries, chronic infections, inflammation, can interfere with both human AI interpretation of scans. These factors introduce a layer of uncertainty that AI still struggles to manage effectively. So is AI in radiology good or bad? The answer is not clear-cut. A Harvard study from last year found that while AI improved diagnostic performance for some, it actually worsened it for others. This highlights the need for thoughtful integration. Despite the challenges, the current pace of AI innovation in healthcare is remarkable. The FDA has now cleared over 700 AI-enabled medical devices, with roughly 77% focused on radiology. I'm going to play a short little video for you. This presentation will make more sense if I take a moment to explain this overall process. Diagnostics is a cutting-edge, personalized approach that combines therapy and diagnostics into a single streamlined strategy. It allows clinicians to identify, treat, and monitor cancer. A radio tracer, a type of radioactive drug, is created especially for the patient, depending on the type of cancer being treated. Each cancer may require a different tracer, and some of these compounds are incredibly time sensitive. Some are viable for 4 hours, some for less, some for more. This adds a complexity to logistics. Once prepared, the radiopharmaceutical is injected. It travels through the body and selectively binds to only the cancer cells, delivering targeted radiation that destroys tumors while sparing the healthy tissues. Next, the patient will undergo the scan, which captures detailed images showing how the tracer has been absorbed. These scans visualize the location, spread, and receptor density of the tumors. In a layperson's term, the tumors will light up on the scan, indicating sufficient uptake, and that will determine whether or not the patient is a good candidate for this therapy or not. This is actually my head in an image viewer that I had access to through my health records. Most medical image viewers today follow a kitchen sink approach. They support every imaging modality and every diagnosis imaginable. And while this broad functionality has its place, it was not going to work for our audience. When we began our work, only 2 image viewers were specifically developed for theranostics. The imaging process for cancer care is highly complex, involving numerous roles and steps. I am not a clinic expert, but I quickly mapped out 30 distinct steps and 6 different roles involved. I will not go through all of that detail with you. So this led us to decide to not build another image viewer. That was not our focus. While we did include some tools, you'll see later it is not was not our main goal. Through all of the interviews and contextual landscape analysis that we did, we found that change is incredibly hard in healthcare, not because clinicians resist innovation, but because they've been repeatedly let down by clunky software and poorly implemented experiences. Many have experienced firsthand the frustrations of systems with poor usability that disrupt their workflows or deliver unreliable results. Facing this disappointment and distrust was a challenge. We also found that there was a lack of good examples. Um, a lot of the software out there is very old, and UX was not the focus. The information itself is also very complex, and there's a large learning curve to each subject and each project. Thankfully, we came into this project with some pre-existing knowledge. At least I was already aware of Diagnostics and the process. However, I still had a lot more to learn for this project. This is the tool's homepage, and it streamlines the image workflow for the physician. The minute the user is scanned, the scans go to a system called a PACS, which is a picture archiving and communication system. It's a standard platform used in radiology. The tool is designed to seamlessly integrate. As soon as a scan is identified, the system triggers an automated AI analysis. This automation eliminates delays and reduces the chance of human error. When the physician logs into the platform, the results are there for them. What you're seeing here represents the core of our AI-enabled image viewer. I will say this feels like a lot to take in. I have one smaller version for you and a larger version that we can talk about here. Clinicians are accustomed to having all the available data at their fingertips. This threshold for visual complexity is significantly higher than most users I've encountered, including myself. Adapting to this environment was one of the most challenging parts for designing healthcare. It forced us to remember we are designing for the clinicians and not for ourselves. I will say this amount of visual noise is not what I would design for myself. While additional features are on the roadmap, the current tool allows clinicians to adjust how they view and interact with the images. So this panel here is the parts that we did decide to do that are an image viewer, and it allows them to interpret these results in different manners. We learned a lot. This functioning was difficult for me to grasp as someone without radiology training, but hands-on experimentation with viewers, even my own scans, was incredibly helpful. Some things that we learned and some best practices that I would like to leave you with is that AI is not always predictable. The results can vary depending on quality, context, or scanning timing in this example. Make sure you plan for uncertainty, including edge cases and variability in outputs. Make sure it can fail gracefully. We didn't anticipate any failures at this point, but we did account for patients not having tumors in a certain region. Healthy patients' results won't break this system. Ultimately, users should be able to review, refine, or override the suggestions to maintain clinical accountability. That will be in our next launch. We'll allow clinicians or radiologists to annotate the findings, and hopefully the system will then learn from that. I should also say that anything in healthcare has a layer of added complexity because you have to be very careful of what software you use during research, making sure that everything is compliant and protects patient privacy. So everything here has been changed to maintain that patient privacy. And then design for confidence, and healthcare users must feel safe in control. We prioritize clear visual hierarchy and plain language feedback, which you'll see later, in a tone that flavors clarity. We set the tool up as a collaborative system. It's not an authority figure. And one way I can explain this is our entire panel here on the left side with some zooms in for you. What this does is it tells the physician that everything ran correctly, and it tells the physician very clearly how this patient reacted to the drug. It will also very clearly let them make the decision whether or not a patient is a candidate for this treatment or not. While this treatment is very successful, it can also be very expensive, but they can confidently make that decision with the data here. The 99% is basically measuring the tumors and seeing how they are higher in comparing to the liver, which is a baseline. An interesting point is the number of lesions could be small or large. It only is helpful in the context of everything else. Someone could have 279 lesions or several very large lesions. So it's interesting that this needs to be looked at with everything else. I will also say this box plot was very helpful in seeing how the lesions are spread across the body. Obviously, the further away from the cancer site, the more concerning that is. The number that made the most success to me was the disease burden. This is just measuring the total number of tumors throughout the body. I will also say that dealing in healthcare, there are lots of moments where you can get quite emotional, especially when interviewing patients and their caregivers. And that's a great topic for another time. I also really enjoyed working on this project because I had the chance to talk about and write about AI, which was a huge challenge. I found that most healthcare systems say they are doing AI, but they do not explain how. They do not explain what the model can do, how it's doing it, where the data comes from, or its limitations. So essentially where that data start or the tool starts and stops. There is a term for this. I didn't coin it myself, but I found this great term is called explainable AI. I was lucky that both of our AI engineers have a biomedical background and our BAMF clinicians are patient teachers because this was not easy to write. This particular region was specifically for our radiologists. While this table is nothing new and it's a very old pattern, I will say it's definitely the most trust-building element of our AI tool. This answers, did the AI even run or not? And it builds clarity. It confirms that the analysis was completed and it displays the findings in a structured, transparent way. If a patient had very unexpected results, this table will allow them to go in and understand better what happened with the patient's disease. Each lesion has been identified by the AI tool, is listed and labeled with 4 key data points recording size, location, and uptake intensity. This provides immediate clinical value and reassures the users that the analysis was a logical, repeatable process. This is also where we planned for empty states. And even in our initial findings, we did find patients who did have empty states, but yet may have had cancer in one region that was incredibly large. My favorite part about this tool is that if you click on a lesion, it will actually rotate or scan the images to that lesion in particular and let it see you in all varying 3 different views. And quickly, I'll tell you that the MIP is very much like a video of the drug working throughout your body, which is this one here. This is looking down into the body. So if I could play it for you, you could basically see from head to shoulders to feet. This is obviously a side view, and this is actually the back view. All 4 of these views are necessary when dealing with cancer. This tool is also meant to augment, not replace the radiologist. Their expertise is irreplaceable. What we're aiming to do is save them time and reduce cognitive fatigue. In traditional workflows, they have to pour over hundreds of scan slices, select kind of essentially drawing over each one and label it. They're manually searching through millions and millions of images. It's painstaking work, and the consequences of missing something are serious. On average, we interviewed, this could take a day or 2 days of a radiologist's time frame. When cancer is growing at such a high rate, you cannot see how this can be problematic. Our tool gives them a head start, pre-annotating lesions, so they can focus on validation, interpretation, and not just detection. With this approach, they can feel more confident that nothing was overlooked while maintaining their control. Last fall, I had 5 months of sinus infections, or maybe it was one long one. I had to have a CT of my sinuses, and this was my report. And I can say, even though I've been in healthcare for 7 years, I did not understand it. And my GP had to translate for me. She also wasn't able to determine how severe my results were. It took a month to schedule imaging, have it done, and finally understands the results from my ENT. I was only able to get it done that fast because I was willing to drive an hour to see them. I'm not sure how long it would have taken if I was a new patient to that ENT. In the meantime, while all this was going on, I had a migraine every single day. Now imagine dealing with cancer, an illness that is far more complex than sinus infections. These reports mirror everything in the AI tool, but it's in a printer-friendly format, and it's also just more user-friendly. It's more easy to digest than paragraphs of results that were written, and you need to have a medical degree to understand it. Most of our older patients also still preferring having physical copies. So this was important to us to create a report that they could take home and take with them or even download later. It also includes a clear visual summary designed for the physician and their caregivers. Our next step is to create a tool or enhance our existing tool so that it will look at different time points. In theranostics, it's common to have 6 cycles or multiple cycles where the patient is receiving therapy and then a scan, and then they're looking at how that therapy impacted the disease. As you can see here on the left, this is someone starting out. This is their first therapy session and first scan. And then as they go, you can see that the red dots are slowly disappearing, especially the ones that are further away from the initial cancer. This is a great result. This also creates a lot of complexity for both physicians and radiologists to have to compare tumor over time. See, is it shrinking? Is it growing? Are there new tumors? Did the tumors disappear? This is incredibly complex and lots of imaging to sort through. And this is where AI will really make an impact by saving experts time and reducing cognitive load. Our process was not any different from a typical healthcare process. The most challenging part was to not be intimidated by what I needed to immerse myself in. The image viewer was the most complex part. Writing about the AI model was really the new part for me, and thankfully I was able to utilize my subject matter experts. I will say, looking at Mohit's presentation as well, you cannot skip anything when you're dealing with healthcare or AI. You need to make sure you're framing the problem, asking the right questions, you're doing usability testing more frequently on smaller pieces. And just in general, I would say make sure you ask for more time to learn the subject matter because it's complex. I know it's often to get pressured into skipping steps, but when you're dealing in healthcare, you definitely cannot skip any steps. Overall, I will say I learned the need to communicate, stress test, and feedback. I also feel like I could sum all of this up in that information is critical and you're really just designing information. Stress testing is something that I really enjoy doing, and I've done it for a long time. And if you haven't done this before, I'll spell that out a little bit more clearly. This is where you're taking different scenarios and making sure that the designs work for them. You're picking the hardest scenarios and making sure that they work. This does take more time in the UX phase, but it also gives developers better plans ahead of time and allows them to react to those stress tests. Communication is incredibly important. It's important that you know the limitations and that your users know the limitations of machines and how it's going to reach that particular outcome. So they're more likely to gain acceptance and be less biased. These are some resources I found helpful. I know there are a lot of resources out there right now, which is fantastic, but these were just happened to be my favorites, especially UX for AI. There's some great case studies in there for products that I'll actually be familiar with as well. And I just want to say thank you to Human Factors International and the previous presenters who set me up so well. And thank you all for listening, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right. As always, we're going to the questions in the Q&A box. We have one that's, oh, more than one, maybe. Let me make sure this is updated. We have a few that have been upvoted already, so we do use those upvotes to prioritize these. Let's start with this question from Tilova Ghosh, who asks, what type of AI are you using for facilitating the result for the clinician? Is it Gen AI or agentic AI or a typical AI agent?
I will have to say I am not an expert, so I probably don't want to answer that one. So,
Okay.
um,
Let's go to this next one. Jishnu Kadile, I'm not sure, says the BAMF platform looks really functional and intuitive for the target user. Would love to learn more about the design process and any unique challenges you faced when designing that experience.
yeah, I can speak to that because I think that someone else may find that helpful too if they
Mm,
join a healthcare startup. The biggest challenge we have found is we don't have a lot of users to pull from across the entire world.
mm,
Theranostics is so new that we never it's very rare that we find the exact target user that we want to interview. Thankfully, we do have two great experts here that are incredibly good at speaking in layperson terms. So they're great at communicating with, and they understand software and they understand what we're looking for. So that is wonderful. But I will say, when you get into this uniqueness, it can be hard to find people to interview, and it can be hard to find people to do usability testing on. I will say we're growing, so that helps, and more people are getting into theranostics. So I look forward to that not being such a challenge. I will say that for our process, it's not unique to anything, any other process that is complex or data heavy. Um, I will say you can't skip, I will just say again, like, you can't skip anything. We try to do more testing more frequently before things even get in our developers' hands. We also try to make sure we bring in our developers as quickly as possible, so they have time to do their own research. Our developers are actually doing a lot of great research for us as well, in helping out with that user experience, whether it's finding like a great library we can use for the list of physicians, but giving them that extra time to do their research as well is critical.
Yeah. And you're talking about doing various kinds of research on kind of more the domain. You're not talking about doing user research, right?
I will say
Curious.
it's both. Yeah, we're like
Oh,
do more
interesting.
iterative research up front for sure.
Yeah.
But then you're also just trying to do more research about what even exists that you can reuse.
Okay. But you're
And
having
I
the
will,
developers do that user research?
they don't necessarily do user research, but they're
Okay.
researching technologies, I will say,
Yeah, yeah.
that
That's
we can
that's
reuse.
why I
Yeah.
wanted to check. I'm always kind of
Yeah.
curious of how all that plays out.
I
Let's
will
see.
say that I have always found developers to be a great resource in feedback, in the sense that they often find UX problems that I didn't even think of. So everybody go get your developer a coffee.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing about listening to all the various stakeholders and voices in our teams. This next question, Mohammed asks, how does your team ensure the AI generates accurate reports?
We have a great team that have done a great job training the model. And like I said, a lot of them have experience in biomedical as part of their degree. And so I can't speak exactly to their process, but I do know
Mm,
they are going to be speaking to their process of building the model next week. So
all right. Let's see. Umesh Nawathe asks, what was the most challenging part of working as a UX professional for the healthcare industry? And that too something, sorry, and that too something as complex as this radiology application. How did you come over it?
I will say the most complex thing is wanting to do more and you can't yet.
Mm,
Healthcare is often a lot of pieces of software intermingled, and so the more times you have third party people impacting what you can do, the more you're restricted. Both from, I will just say, the software team in general is restricted, so that has probably been the hardest thing, is making sure, getting over those hurdles of like, well, we can't build everything and we need all these other things, so we have to tie in with these third parties.
mhm,
That was less of an issue on this
mm.
project. This project, it was definitely just the complexity of image viewers that I needed to learn. I needed to understand their language, and making sure that we gave the radiologists a great tool when they had been disappointed so heavily in the past.
And let's see. Erwin Jankovic asks, did you look at the formats other MDs use to see if the formats they're using are similar to the system?
So tell me a little bit more about, by MD, did you mean the physician?
Erwin, if you're there, maybe you can put that in the chat.
While we're waiting for that, I will say
Yeah.
we were able to look at two other theranostic platforms.
Mhm.
They did do a great job of showing casing things over time. They didn't have the same approach as having a whole left side panel that's essentially dedicated to that physician who's the decision maker, and the patient. So that left side was really how our tool stood out from other tools, was by bringing those insights in a very visual manner and making it easier to understand. I also, if I didn't know, that also saves the physician about 2 hours of time, which maybe doesn't seem like that much, but think of how specialized that oncologist is, and saving them that amount of time is a big deal because the more patients they can see, the better.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing a response in the chat. Oh, wait, there it is. Yes, so Erwin clarified, doctors overlearn the tools they already use. Adoption might be helped, adoption might be helped be similarity of your tool with what they are used to.
Yeah, so I think I can speak to that a little bit too. Like we, with the tools and functions itself, we did not rewrite anything. Like we definitely
Yeah.
use the patterns that are already out there, because that's a whole, I mean, that's years and years that we're not going to try and change, not without being able to do a massive amount of interviews beforehand and usability testing along the way. The image viewers just wasn't our goal. It is the image viewer itself will become potentially less and less important. The more robust that AI tool can give you those facts, the less they need to play with that image viewer. And which is why we kept it as simple as we can. We also used a library for the image viewer itself. We didn't build that from scratch. From a UX perspective, maybe we made a few concessions too, because we're like, we're not going to rethink the wheel. If there's an open platform out there for image viewers, it's been well researched, and we're going to utilize that. It definitely wasn't the focus. Those statistics that we showed in the visual way there, that was the most important part. That table was incredibly important too, and being able to like see those results, click on the images, or have it click on the images for you and be able to see that and see those results was really the important part.
All right, so I think we are at time. Please give a warm applause in the emotes for Miranda Sawyer. Thank you so much for your presentation today.
Thank you.